Millionaire opened the safe and left home. The nanny did something he never expected. Maria Vance felt her heart race when she saw that absurd amount of money stacked in the open safe. Her boss, Jonathan Sterling, had rushed out for an emergency meeting, leaving the office door wide open and the safe completely open. That's when she noticed something that made her legs tremble. There, right in front of her, was exactly $10,000. The same amount the loan shark in the neighborhood was charging not to evict her family that week. "My God in heaven," she murmured, running a trembling hand through her brown hair, tied in a simple bun. Maria had worked for 3 years as the nanny of little Lily, the businessman's 7-year-old daughter. In all that time, she had never seen so much money together. Her mind flew home, where her mother Martha, 68 years old, had been bedridden for months without being able to afford proper diabetes treatment. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made her instinctively step back. It was the new gardener, Gary, who had started working at the mansion only 2 weeks ago. Something about him always bothered her, maybe the way he looked at the things in the house, as if he were calculating their value. "Maria, did you see where the boss put the new tools?" asked Gary, trying to crane his neck to see inside the office. "I don't know, Gary. And look, Mr. Jonathan asked that no one come in here today," she lied quickly, positioning herself in the doorway to block his view. "Oh, really? And since when does the nanny run the house?" he retorted with a smile she didn't like at all. "Since I started taking care of this girl as if she were my own daughter and protecting this family," she replied firmly, crossing her arms. Gary let out a dry laugh and walked away, but not before casting a curious glance toward the office. Maria took a deep breath and turned her attention back to the safe. The money was still there, like a silent temptation. She knew her family was struggling. Her mother's medicine cost almost $200 a month, and with the $600 she earned, she could barely afford the rent for the small apartment in the Bronx. Her 2 children, 12-year-old Leo and 9-year-old Chloe, had already asked why they couldn't eat meat every day like the other kids. The sound of Lily crying from her room pulled her away from her troubling thoughts. The girl had woken up from her afternoon nap and was calling for her. Maria looked one last time at the safe and made a decision that would change her life forever. She picked up the key that was on the table and locked the safe, putting the key in the pocket of her navy blue apron, not out of greed, but out of fear that someone might take advantage of the boss's absence to do something wrong. "I'm coming, Princess," she called out to Lily as she walked toward the room. The girl was sitting on the bed, her blonde curls messy and her green eyes still drowsy. "Maria, I had a nightmare. I dreamed you were leaving and never coming back," said Lily, stretching out her little arms for a hug. "Oh, my love, Auntie Maria isn't going anywhere," she replied, sitting on the edge of the bed and pulling the girl into her lap. Lily was an affectionate child, very different from the spoiled kids she had looked after in other jobs. The girl treated her with genuine affection, and Maria had developed a maternal love for her. That was precisely why the decision to protect the safe had felt so natural. "Maria, why does the new gardener keep looking at Mommy's things?" Lily asked suddenly. "What do you mean, Princess?" "Yesterday I saw him messing with Mommy's jewelry when she left." He didn't know I was watching from the stairs. A chill ran down Maria's spine. Her suspicions about Gary were correct. She needed to tell Mr. Jonathan as soon as he returned. 2 hours later, Jonathan Sterling walked into the house with a heavy expression. The meeting hadn't gone as expected, and he was losing an important contract. At 45, even though he was successful in the medical equipment import business, each lost deal cut deep. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to hit like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us beginners. Now continuing. "Daddy!" shouted Lily, running to hug him at the entrance. "Hey, my princess, how was your day?" he asked, lifting his daughter in his arms. "Good. Auntie Maria helped me with my homework, and we made chocolate cake. But Daddy, I need to tell you something important." Jonathan smiled, always amused by his daughter's important things. "Go ahead then." "Auntie Maria protected your office today. The new gardener wanted to come in, but she didn't let him. She said you told her not to let anyone in." Jonathan's smile vanished immediately. He hadn't told anyone that. In fact, he'd left in such a hurry that he hadn't even remembered to lock the safe. His blood ran cold at the thought of someone possibly seeing all that money he was keeping for a special transaction on Monday. "Where's Maria?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "In the kitchen, making my snack." Jonathan set Lily down and walked quickly to the office. His worst suspicion was confirmed. The safe was locked with a different key than the one he always used. That was the spare key that stayed in the desk drawer. "Maria!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the whole house. She appeared at the door, drying her hands on her apron, and immediately sensed something was wrong. "Yes, Mr. Jonathan?" "Why is my safe locked with a different key?" Maria felt her legs go weak. The question sounded like an accusation. I locked it to protect it, sir. You left in such a hurry and left it open. I was afraid someone would see it and... Someone like who? Like you, for instance." The question hit her like a slap in the face. Maria felt her eyes fill with tears. "Sir, are you thinking that I—" "Open the safe. Now." With trembling hands, Maria took the key from her pocket and opened the safe. In her nervousness, she accidentally bumped one of the stacks of money, which scattered across the floor. The scene looked even more incriminating. "I can explain, Mr. Jonathan. I only wanted to protect it because Gary, the new gardener, was—" "Gary? Now you're trying to blame someone else?" "No, sir, I swear on my children's lives that I only locked the safe to protect it. Even Lily saw that I wouldn't let Gary in here." "Lily is a child, Maria. She doesn't understand these things." Jonathan looked at the money scattered on the floor and at Maria, who was crying desperately. In his mind, the scene was clear. The babysitter had seen the safe open, messed with the money, and when caught made up an excuse about protecting it. "I trusted you for 3 years, Maria. You were in my house taking care of my daughter, and you did this to me. Sir, I would never do that. You know me." "I thought I did. Gather your things and leave. And if I find out you took anything, I'll have to take more serious measures." Maria felt her world collapse around her. Not only was she losing her job, but she was being accused of something she would never do. "And my back pay, sir. It's been 2 weeks since—" "Pay? After what you did? You should be grateful I'm not calling the police right now." The injustice of the situation left Maria speechless. She went upstairs to get her few personal belongings from the maid's room. Lily appeared at the door, her eyes red from crying. "Maria, why are you leaving? I don't want you to go." "Princess, sometimes grown-ups do things that children don't understand," said Maria, kneeling down to be at the girl's eye level. "But I love you, Maria. You're like a second mom to me." Those words hurt more than all of Jonathan's accusations. Maria hugged Lily one last time and left the mansion carrying only an old backpack with her clothes. The bus ride home was the longest of her life. How would she explain to her mother and her children that she had lost her job? How would she pay the rent, the medicine, the food? When she arrived at the tiny 2-room apartment, she found a scene that made her even more desperate. Her mother, Martha, was unconscious on the kitchen floor. Leo, her oldest son, was trying to wake her up. "Mum, thank God you're here. Grandma passed out and I didn't know what to do," said the boy, tears in his eyes. Maria rushed to help her mother and realized her blood sugar was off. Martha had saved all the food for the grandchildren and gone the whole day without eating properly. "Mum, why did you do that?" asked Maria, helping Martha sit up. "My daughter, there wasn't enough food for everyone. An old woman like me doesn't need to eat that much." In that moment, Maria understood the weight of the responsibility she carried. It wasn't just about her, but about an entire family that depended on her work, and now, falsely accused of theft, how could she find another job? "Mom, what happened at work? Why did you come home so early?" asked Leo. Maria didn't have the courage to tell the truth, not yet. "Trouble at work, son, but everything will be fine." That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay there planning how she'd look for a new job, but she knew that without references from her last job, it would be nearly impossible. Jonathan was an influential person, and if he spread the word that she was dishonest, no middle or upper-class family would hire her. The next morning, Maria made a desperate decision. She went back to Jonathan's mansion and asked to speak with him. She at least needed her back pay to buy her mother's medicine. The security guard, Officer Bill, who had always been kind to her, was embarrassed when he received orders not to let her in. "I'm sorry, Maria, but the boss was clear. You can't come in here anymore." "Officer Bill, I just want my salary. 2 weeks of work. My mother is sick and needs her medicine." "I understand, girl, but there's nothing I can do." Just then, Gary, the gardener, appeared. "Maria, what a shame about what happened yesterday," he said, with a smile she couldn't read. "You know very well what really happened, Gary." "I do? And what do I know?" "You know I didn't steal anything. You know I only locked the safe to protect it." Gary stepped closer to her, looking around to make sure no one else was listening. "You know what, Maria, you're right. I know exactly what happened. And I also know other things about your ex-boss. Things that could help you get revenge." "Revenge? I don't want revenge, Gary. I just want justice." "Justice? Oh, my dear, justice is for rich people. For people like us, only revenge is left." Maria looked into Gary's eyes and saw something that scared her. There was a coldness there, a calculated malice that confirmed all her suspicions. "I don't want revenge. I just want my dignity back." "Your dignity?" Gary laughed. "Maria, don't you see? You were the perfect scapegoat. I needed someone to blame when the plan worked out." "What plan?" "The safe, my dear. I'd been planning to rob it for days. You not letting me in yesterday only delayed the plan, but it didn't cancel it. And when the money disappears, guess who'll be blamed? The dishonest former nanny who was already caught tampering with the safe." Maria felt a knot in her stomach. Gary was confessing that he had planned to use her as a scapegoat from the very beginning. "You're crazy. I'm going to tell Mr. Jonathan everything." "Tell him what? Who's going to believe you? A poor woman, already accused of theft against the word of a hard-working gardener?" Maria stepped back from Gary, feeling the danger of the situation. She needed to find a way to clear her name and expose the truth. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us beginners. Now, continuing. Desperate, Maria remembered that Catherine, Jonathan's wife, worked at a beauty salon in the Upper East Side. Maybe she would listen to her more calmly than her husband. The Pure Elegance salon was elegant, frequented by women of New York's high society. Maria felt out of place walking in with her simple, worn-out clothes. "Excuse me, do you have an appointment?" asked the receptionist, looking her up and down. I need to speak with Mrs. Catherine. It's about her daughter, Lily." The mention of her daughter seemed to break the receptionist's barrier, who went to call Catherine. Catherine Sterling, 38 years old, was an elegant, well-groomed woman. She had inherited the salon from her mother and managed to turn it into one of the most renowned in the area. When she saw Maria, her expression was a mix of surprise and embarrassment. "Maria, what are you doing here?" "Mrs. Catherine, I need to talk to you about what happened yesterday." Catherine looked around and noticed that other clients were paying attention to the conversation. "Let's talk in the back," she said, leading Maria to a small room at the back of the salon. "Mrs. Catherine, I swear on my children's lives that I didn't steal anything. I only locked the safe to protect it." Catherine was silent for a few seconds, studying Maria's face. "Maria, I've known you for 3 years. You've always been honest and dedicated to Lily. But my husband is convinced that—" "Mrs. Catherine, do you suspect anything about Gary, the new gardener?" The question caught Catherine off guard. "Why are you asking that?" "Because Lily told me she saw him messing with your jewelry when you left, and today he said things to me that scared me." Catherine sat down, looking worried. "Maria, to be honest, I'm suspicious of him too. Some small items have gone missing since he started working. Earrings, an old watch of my grandmother's, but Jonathan won't listen to me. He says I'm being paranoid. Mrs. Catherine, he confessed to me today that he was planning to rob the safe. He said I'd be the perfect scapegoat." "Oh my God, Maria, you have to tell Jonathan. Do you think he'll believe me after what happened yesterday?" Catherine knew the former nanny was right. Jonathan was blinded by wounded pride and wouldn't listen to Maria. "I'll try to talk to him. But Maria, you need proof. It's one person's word against another. That won't solve anything." Maria went home with a small flicker of hope in her chest. At least Catherine had listened and believed her. The next day, something happened that completely changed the situation. Lily, who had spent the night crying because of Maria's departure, decided to run away from home to find her heart aunt. The girl knew Maria's address because she had heard the nanny talking on the phone a few times. With the typical determination of a child, she left home early in the morning while her parents were still asleep and took 2 buses to get to the Bronx. Maria was at the door of her house, returning from the bakery where she had tried to get a job, when she saw Lily getting off the bus. "Lily, oh my God, what are you doing here?" she shouted, running to scoop the girl into her arms. "Maria, I knew I'd find you," said Lily, hugging her tightly. "Princess, your parents must be worried sick. How did you end up here?" "I took the bus, just like you taught me." "Remember when you showed me on the map where you lived?" Maria remembered. One afternoon, Lily had asked where she lived and she had shown her on the city map. She never imagined the girl would memorize the route. "Lily, you can't be here. Come on, I'm taking you back home." "No, I don't want to go back if you don't come with me. Why did Daddy send you away? You didn't do anything wrong." At that moment, Leo and Chloe, Maria's children, came home from school and were surprised to see Lily. "Mom, who is she?" asked Chloe. "It's Lily, the girl I used to take care of." "Come on, honey, you need to go home," said Maria, taking Lily by the hand. But before they could leave, a luxury car stopped in front of the small building. Jonathan got out, his face red with anger and desperation. "Lily!" he shouted, running toward his daughter, but to his surprise, Lily hid behind Maria. "I don't want to go back unless Maria comes with me," the girl said stubbornly. "Lily, come here right now," Jonathan ordered. "Mr. Jonathan, please don't yell at her." "She's just a child," Maria intervened. "Stay out of it. You've done enough. Not only did you steal from my house, now you're manipulating my daughter." The accusation stung Maria deeply, especially in front of her children, who finally understood why their mother had lost her job. "Daddy, Maria didn't steal anything. She's good," Lily shouted. "Lily, you don't understand these things. Let's go home now." That's when Chloe, Maria's youngest daughter, stepped forward. "Mom, why is that man saying you stole? You always teach that stealing is wrong." Jonathan looked at the 9-year-old girl, and for a moment his heart tightened. She was about the same age as Lily, but living in very different conditions. "Mr. Jonathan," Maria said, her voice firm, "I know you don't believe me, but look me in the eyes and tell me if you see any evil here." Jonathan looked into Maria's eyes, and for a split second he had doubts. But pride got the better of him. "Come on, Lily, now." Lily started crying but eventually went with her father. Before getting into the car, she shouted, "Maria, I'll tell Mommy you're good. She'll make Daddy believe." Maria stood at the doorstep, watching the car drive away. Her children looked at her with a mix of confusion and sadness. "Mum, you really didn't steal anything, right?" asked Leo. "Son, your mother would never steal anything. I'd rather starve than take what isn't mine." That night, Jonathan had a serious conversation with Catherine about what had happened. She told him about the conversation she had with Maria at the salon and the suspicions about Gary. "Jonathan, don't you think you might be making a mistake?" "Catherine, I saw it with my own eyes. She was at the safe, the money was scattered. What if she was actually trying to protect it? What if Gary really was planning to steal? You're defending her because you're a woman and you're being sympathetic." "No, Jonathan. I'm defending her because I know her character. In 3 years, Maria has never given any reason to distrust. Meanwhile, at Maria's house, things were getting harder and harder. Without her back pay and with no prospect of a new job, she had to make a painful decision: sell the few valuables she had to buy her mother's medicine. She sold her cell phone, some appliances, and even the few pieces of jewelry she had inherited from her grandmother. Even so, the money wasn't enough for all the needs. That's when a neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, a 70-year-old woman who had always been kind to the family, showed up with a proposal. "Maria, my dear, how about you make some sweets for me to sell at the market? You always made delicious chocolate truffles." It was an option, but Maria knew it wouldn't bring in much money. Still, it was better than nothing. "Thank you, Mrs. Higgins. I'll accept your help." Maria started making sweets at home to sell at the market. The work was hard. She woke up at 4 in the morning to have everything ready, but the income was very low. In a whole week, she only managed to make $50. Meanwhile, Jonathan began to notice strange behavior in Gary. The gardener asked a lot of questions about the family's routine, about when they left, how long they stayed out. One night, Jonathan decided to test his suspicions. He left home saying he was going on a business trip, but came back a few hours later. To his surprise, he found Gary in the garden, even though it was almost midnight. "Gary, what are you doing here at this hour?" "Oh, Mr. Jonathan, you scared me. I was finishing watering the plants. How was your trip so quick?" "I changed my mind and decided to travel early tomorrow." Jonathan noticed Gary's nervousness and decided to keep an eye on him. The next day, during a heavy storm, Jonathan came home early from work. What he found left him in shock. The safe was broken into and completely empty. Gary had disappeared. Desperate, Jonathan ran to check the security cameras, but discovered they had been turned off. That's when he found an envelope on the office desk. Inside, a handwritten note in Maria's handwriting. "Mr. Jonathan, I know you won't believe me, but I need to warn you that I strongly suspect Gary. He asks strange questions about the family's routine, and yesterday I saw him looking at the safe when you weren't there. Please be careful and check his references. I would never harm this family that I love so much, Maria." The note was dated the day she was fired. Jonathan felt like he had been punched in the stomach. Maria had tried to warn him about Gary on the very day he had unfairly accused her. With trembling hands, Jonathan picked up the phone and called the company that had recommended Gary. To his dismay, he discovered the company didn't exist. The address provided was fake, and the name Gary Miller was registered with the police for fraud. The guilt Jonathan felt at that moment was overwhelming. He had destroyed an innocent woman's life because of his own pride and prejudice. Desperate to find Maria and ask for forgiveness, Jonathan went to the address where she lived. But the doorman informed him that the family had moved a week ago after being evicted for not paying the rent. "Do you know where they went?" Jonathan asked, anguished. "I don't know, sir. Maria was very sad when she left here. She said she was going to stay at a relative's house." Jonathan spent days searching for Maria around the city. He asked at hospitals, health clinics, churches, until a lead took him to Metropolitan General Hospital. There, in the hallway of the inpatient ward, he found her. Maria was sleeping in an uncomfortable chair, wearing wrinkled clothes, her face marked by exhaustion. Beside her, on a stretcher, was an elderly woman connected to various machines. "Maria," he called softly. She woke with a start, and upon seeing him tried to get up and run away. "Maria, please, let me talk to you." "I have nothing to say to you, Mr. Jonathan. Isn't ruining my life enough?" "Maria, I know the truth. About Gary, about everything. I made a terrible mistake." Maria stopped trying to flee and looked at him with suspicion. "What truth?" "Gary robbed the safe and disappeared, and I found the note you left warning me about him." Maria felt her legs go weak. All the injustice she had suffered could have been avoided. "You're telling me this now, after I lost everything?" "Maria, I know I don't have the right to ask for forgiveness, but I need to try to correct the mistake I made." "Correct it? How are you going to correct it, Mr. Jonathan? Are you going to give me back my dignity? Are you going to cure my mother? Are you going to explain to my children why they went hungry these past few weeks?" Jonathan looked at the woman on the stretcher and understood she was Maria's mother. "How is she?" "Bad. Very bad. Without the right medication, her diabetes got worse. Now she needs dialysis 3 times a week, and the public health service has a 6-month waiting list. Maria, let me help with her treatment." "Help? Are you trying to give me charity now?" "It's not charity, Maria. It's the least I can do after the harm I caused." "Mr. Jonathan, I don't want your pity. I want my dignity back." It was at that moment that Lily came running down the hallway. She had followed her father in secret. "Maria!" the girl shouted, jumping into the former nanny's arms. "Lily, what are you doing here?" "I told Daddy he was wrong about you. I said you would never steal anything because you're good." Maria hugged Lily with tears in her eyes. The child's unconditional love was the only pure thing in the middle of that whole situation. "Princess, you shouldn't be here. This place has lots of germs." I don't care. I wanted to see you and meet your mummy. Lily walked over to the stretcher where Mrs. Martha was being treated. Is she sleeping? She's very sick, Princess. Then I'll say a prayer so she gets better soon. Lily's innocence broke down the last defenses of both Maria and Jonathan. Here was a child who didn't see social differences, only true love. Maria, Jonathan said, his voice cracking, I can't undo what I did, but I can try to build something new. Let me help, not out of pity but out of justice. Maria looked into his eyes and saw something different. He was no longer the arrogant man who had humiliated her, but someone genuinely remorseful. How can I trust you after everything? You can't, and I understand that. But give me a chance to prove I've changed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. That really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Maria was silent for a few minutes, looking at her unconscious mother and at Lily, who was gently holding her hand. What are you proposing? She finally asked. First, I'll cover all of your mother's treatment. And it's not a favor. It's my duty after what I did. And then? Then I'd like to offer you an opportunity, not as a nanny, but as something bigger. I don't understand. Jonathan thought for a few seconds before speaking. Maria, you have a special way with children. Lily has never been as happy as she was during the years you took care of her. How about we start a daycare center, with you as the main administrator and educator? The proposal caught Maria off guard. A daycare center? A daycare for children from working families like yours, a place where they receive love and quality education regardless of their parents' financial situation. Maria felt a mix of hope and distrust. Why would you do that? Because I learned in the worst possible way that a person's true worth isn't in their bank account, but in their character. Lily started jumping for joy. Daddy, does that mean Maria can come back home? Not exactly like before, Princess, but maybe she can be part of our lives in a new way. Maria was still hesitant, but the possibility of a fresh start excited her. I need to think. Of course. Take all the time you need. And Maria, regardless of your decision about the daycare, your mother's treatment is already taken care of. What do you mean? I already spoke with the doctor. Your mother is being transferred to a private clinic today. Full treatment, for as long as needed. Maria started to cry. Not from sadness, but from relief. Finally, your mother will get the proper treatment. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me, Maria. It's the least I can do. In the weeks that followed, Maria's life began to change rapidly. Martha was transferred to a private clinic, where she received all the necessary treatment. With the best doctors and equipment, her health improved significantly. Maria, who had moved with her children into a house rented by Jonathan, started planning the childcare center. At first she was hesitant, but as she saw his commitment to the project, she grew more confident. Maria, I've chosen a plot of land in the Bronx near your old house, said Jonathan, showing her the project blueprints. I want the center to be in the heart of the community, to serve the children who need it most. Mr. Jonathan, may I make a suggestion? Of course, all decisions about the center are yours. I'd like the center to be called the Martha Vance Childcare Center, in honor of my mother. Jonathan smiled. Perfect. The Martha Vance Childcare Center. While the center was being built, Maria devoted herself to studying. Jonathan paid for her to take a pedagogy course, and Maria discovered she had a true passion for teaching. Catherine, who had felt guilty for not defending Maria more at first, also became involved in the project. She organized a campaign among the clients at the salon to collect toys and school supplies. Maria, I also need to apologize to you, Catherine said one day. I knew you were innocent, but I didn't fight hard enough to convince my husband. Mrs. Catherine, what matters is that now we all know the truth. Lily was thrilled with the childcare center project. She spent her afternoons helping Maria organize materials and decorate the rooms. Maria, when the center opens, can I come help sometimes? Of course, Princess. You can be my special assistant. Leo and Chloe, Maria's children, were also excited. Leo, who had always been responsible, offered to help with the older kids, while Chloe loved the idea of playing with the little ones. 6 months later, the Martha Vance Childcare Center was inaugurated. It was a colorful and welcoming building, with a playground, library, full kitchen, and rooms adapted for different ages. On opening day, Maria was nervous but radiant. She wore a simple yet elegant blue dress that Catherine had chosen for her. "Mom, you look beautiful," said Chloe, adjusting her mother's hair. "Thank you, sweetheart. You both look beautiful too." Jonathan arrived with Lily and a bouquet of flowers. "For the most special director in the world," he said, handing the flowers to Maria. "Thank you, Mr. Jonathan, for everything. Maria, I think it's time you just called me Jonathan. We're partners now." The opening ceremony was emotional. Martha, who had fully recovered, cut the inaugural ribbon with tears in her eyes. "My daughter, I always knew you were special, but I never imagined you would go this far," she said to Maria. "Mum, we went far, together." Dozens of children from the community were present with their parents. Many were old neighbors of Maria's, who had known her since the days she sold sweets at the market. "Maria, remember when you sold chocolate truffles at the market?" said Mrs. Higgins, the neighbor who had helped during the tough times. "Who would have thought you'd become a child care center director?" "Mrs. Higgins, you were very important on this journey. Without your help back then, I wouldn't have made it." The center was an immediate success. Maria had implemented a system where families paid according to their income, ensuring no child was left out for financial reasons. She hired other mothers from the community as staff, creating a support network and local employment. Among them was Sandra, a neighbor who had lost her job during the pandemic. "Maria, thank you for this opportunity." "You saved my family," Sandra said on her first day of work. "Sandra, here we help each other." That's how I learned to live. 3 months after the grand opening, Maria received news that made her very happy. Gary had been arrested in Ohio, trying to pull the same scam on another family. He would be put on trial, and finally, justice would be done. "Maria, do you know what this means?" asked Jonathan. "Your innocence is officially proven." "To be honest, Jonathan, I don't need that proof anymore. The people who matter always knew I was innocent." Jonathan smiled as he saw how Maria had transformed, not just physically but in confidence and self-esteem. 1 year after the childcare center opened, Maria was invited to speak at a social entrepreneurship event at the New York City Hall. "It is with great pride that I present Maria Vance, founder of the Martha Vance Childcare Center, an example of how education can transform communities," said the presenter. Maria stepped onto the stage with elegance. She had learned to speak in public and was much more confident. "Good afternoon. My name is Maria Vance, and 2 years ago I was an unemployed nanny, falsely accused of theft," she began, surprising the audience with her frankness. She told her story, from the injustice she suffered to the creation of the Child Care Center. She didn't leave out the painful details, nor did she romanticize the situation. "I've learned that no matter how many times you fall, what matters is how many times you get back up. And most importantly, never get up alone. Always reach out your hand to someone else who is falling too." The speech was a success, and Maria received invitations to speak at other institutions. Jonathan, who was in the audience, was moved to see how Maria had grown. "Maria, you inspire me every day," he said after the speech. "Jonathan, you gave me a second chance when I needed it most. That's worth more than any words of recognition." "Actually, Maria, it was you who gave me a second chance. You taught me about forgiveness and how to be a better person." 2 years after the childcare center opened, Maria received an offer to expand the project. The city wanted to replicate the model in other neighborhoods. "Maria, would you be willing to coordinate a larger project?" asked the education secretary during a meeting. It would be a dream to see more childcare centers like ours spread across the city." "Then it's decided. We'll start with 5 more units." Maria could hardly believe it. From an unemployed nanny to coordinator of a city education project. "Jonathan, can you believe this?" she asked, emotional. "Maria, I don't just believe it. I'm certain you'll be even more successful." Lily, now 10 years old, remained a constant presence in Maria's life. "Maria, when I grow up, I want to work with you at the childcare center," the girl said one day. "Princess, you can work at whatever you want, but if you choose to work with me, you'll always be welcome." Leo, Maria's son, had earned a scholarship to a private school, inspired by his mother's success. Chloe, in turn, had become one of the best students at the public school she attended. "Mom, now I see that you were right about never giving up," said Leo. "You taught us that we can be whatever we want. Children, you are my greatest achievement. Everything I do is for you." Martha, now 70 years old and fully recovered, had become the official grandma of the childcare center. The kids adored her, and she loved telling them stories. "Maria, my daughter, sometimes I think that injustice was a blessing in disguise," she said one day. "What do you mean, Mom?" "If it hadn't happened, you never would have discovered that you could be so much more than a nanny. You found out you could be a leader, an educator, a businesswoman." Maria reflected on her mother's words. Really, despite all the pain, that experience had been transformative. On the 5th anniversary of the Martha Vance Childcare Center, Maria organized a big party. Former students, parents, staff, and partners were present. Jonathan made an emotional speech. "5 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I unjustly accused an honest woman of theft. But from this tragedy, something beautiful was born. This childcare center, which has already transformed the lives of hundreds of children." He paused and looked at Maria. "Maria Vance taught me that a person's true worth lies in their character, not in their bank account. She taught me about forgiveness, about overcoming, and about how to turn pain into purpose." The audience applauded, moved. "Maria, would you like to say something?" Jonathan asked. Maria stood up and walked to the front. She was elegant, confident, and radiant. "5 years ago, I was a broken, humiliated, and hopeless woman. Today, I am the coordinator of a project that serves over 1,000 children in 6 childcare centers across New York City." The audience applauded again. "But do you know what my greatest achievement is? It wasn't the awards or the recognition. It was proving to my children that it doesn't matter where you come from, but where you are going." She looked at Leo and Chloe, who were in the front row. "My children, you saw your mother at rock bottom, but you also saw her rise again. I hope I've taught you that no circumstance can defeat a determined person." Tears began to roll down Maria's face. "And Jonathan, thank you for giving me not just a second chance, but for believing that I could fly higher than I ever imagined." The party continued late into the night with lots of music, dancing, and joy. The children played, the adults chatted, and everyone celebrated not just the anniversary of the childcare center, but the power of human resilience. Later, when the party was over and everyone had gone home, Maria stayed alone at the center, looking at the empty rooms full of memories. Martha approached her daughter. "Daughter, are you proud of what you've built?" "Mom, I am at peace, and that is much more important than pride." "Why?" "Because pride can be taken from you. Inner peace never can." "My wise daughter," Martha said, hugging Maria. "Mom, everything I am today I owe to your teachings. You always told me that honesty and hard work are the only things no one can take from us. And you proved that your mother was right." Maria looked out the window and saw Jonathan waiting in the car to give them a ride. "You know, Mom, I learned that sometimes people come into our lives to break us down, but they end up making us stronger." "Are you referring to Jonathan?" "I'm referring to life, Mum. Sometimes it tests us in ways that seem cruel, but in the end, there is always a purpose." They left the center together. Outside, Jonathan was waiting for them with Lily, who had fallen asleep in the back seat. "Maria, thank you for everything," Jonathan said. "Jonathan, thank you for teaching me that forgiveness frees not only the one who forgives, but also the one who is forgiven. You taught me about second chances, and you taught me that it's never too late to change." As the car drove through the streets of New York, Maria looked out the window and reflected on her journey. From a nanny unjustly accused of theft to the coordinator of a nationally recognized social project. Her story had become an inspiration for other women in similar situations. She received letters from all over the country from women who had found the strength to start over after reading about her journey. One of those letters had arrived the previous week from a woman in Savannah. "Dear Maria, my name is Sarah, and I wanted to tell you that your story changed my life. I was also unjustly accused of theft at my job as a housekeeper. I was hopeless until I read about you. Today, I opened a small cleaning business and hired other women like me. Thank you for showing me that it's possible to start over." These letters moved Maria Vance and confirmed that her experience had been worth it. Leo, now 16, had decided he wanted to study education to work with his mother. "Mum, I want to be like you when I grow up," he said one day. "Son, be better than me. Use my experience as a stepping stone to go further." Chloe, at 13, was interested in child psychology. "Mum, I want to help children who have been through trauma like you did." Maria Vance was proud to see how her children had learned about empathy and overcoming through her experience. The Martha Vance Child Care Center had become a national reference in inclusive education and social support. Maria Vance received invitations to speak at universities, conferences, and international events. At one of these events, she met Dr. Dorothy Jenkins, an educator from the Deep South who had created a similar project in her region. "Maria, you are an inspiration to all of us. Your story shows that no matter how many times we fall, we can always get back up. Dorothy, the important thing is that each of us in our own way is making a difference. It doesn't matter the size of the project, it's the love we put into it." 10 years after the initial injustice, Maria Vance was invited to write a book about her experience. The book, titled From Rock Bottom to the Top, A Lesson in Overcoming, became a bestseller and helped even more people find the strength to start over. "Maria, you have become a national reference in overcoming," said the editor during the book launch. "To be honest, I just wanted my story to help other people not give up on their dreams." Jonathan Sterling, who had written the foreword to the book, was present at the launch. "Maria, thank you for allowing me to be part of this journey of transformation. Jonathan, thank you for having the courage to admit the mistake and work to correct it. Not everyone has that greatness." Lily, now 17, continued to be a special presence in Maria's life. The girl had chosen to study social work, inspired by the story of her former nanny. "Maria, you changed not only my life, but the life of my whole family. Dad became a better person after meeting you. Princess, you were the angel who sustained me in the hardest moments. Your unconditional love gave me strength to continue when I wanted to give up." The daycare had grown so much that Maria decided to create a foundation to coordinate all the projects. The Martha Vance Foundation served not only children, but also offered professional courses for mothers and psychological support for families in vulnerable situations. "Marika, the foundation has already served over 5,000 families," said Sarah, who had become the administrative coordinator. "Sarah, do you remember when we were just two desperate women trying to survive?" "I do. And today we are two fulfilled women helping others to survive and thrive." Martha, at 80 years old, remained active and involved. She had become the matriarch not only of the family, but of the entire community served by the foundation. "My daughter, do you know what my greatest pride is?" she asked one day. "What, Mom?" "Seeing that you not only overcame the injustice, but turned it into fuel to help others. Mom, I learned from you that our pain only makes sense if we use it to lessen the pain of others." On the 15th anniversary of the daycare, Maria Vance gave an emotional retrospective during the ceremony. "When I locked that safe to protect my boss's money, I never imagined that gesture would change my life forever. I was accused of theft, lost my job, my dignity, almost lost everything. The audience listened in absolute silence. But I learned that sometimes we lose everything to discover what really matters, and what matters isn't how much money we have, but how many lives we touch, how many smiles we bring, how many tears we wipe away." She paused and looked at the audience, which included hundreds of people whose lives had been transformed by her work. "Today I can say for sure, it was worth every tear, every humiliation, every sleepless night. because all of that brought me here, to you. Emotion filled the room. And I want to end with a message for all the women going through tough times. Don't give up. Life has a mysterious way of turning our greatest pain into our greatest purpose. The applause was long and heartfelt. People were crying, hugging, and celebrating not just Maria Vance, but the strength of human resilience. After the ceremony, Maria Vance and Jonathan Sterling stayed talking in the boardroom. Maria, do you have any idea what you've built? Jonathan, we built it, because this is the result of a partnership based on forgiveness and trust. You know what the biggest lesson I learned from you was? What? That true wealth isn't in what we accumulate, but in what we share. And I learned that even when life seems cruel, there's always a second chance waiting for us. They were silent for a few minutes, looking out the window at the playground where children played happily. Maria, do you regret anything? No, not even the injustice I suffered, because it brought me here. Not even trusting me again? Especially for trusting you again, because you proved to me that people can change, can grow, can become better versions of themselves. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story of overcoming and transformation. Can you relate to the challenges Maria Vance faced? Do you believe Jonathan truly redeemed himself? Leave your honest opinion in the comments and share if you've also gone through difficult times that later turned into something positive. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories that can touch your heart and inspire your journey.